by Riverside.
Hey everyone, welcome to Leadership Bites. Today I am pleased to welcome Samyuktha Neeraja to the podcast. Samyuktha is the State Association's Relations Manager for the American Association of Nurse Anesthesiology. She is a certified association executive who is experienced in program management and community leadership. She holds a master's degree in public health, and she's also a diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, belonging, and justice leader. Listeners, we're going to abbreviate that and simply call it DEI Amplified. Through Samyuktha's commitment to service, she is really building a very strong reputation as a passionate advocate for the disability and South Asian communities. So we're very fortunate to have her with us today to talk about how she's leading and growing these spaces and how all of us can also become stronger champions for DEI Amplified. Samyuktha, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Cam. It is such a great opportunity to be here, to be on your show. And I just have to say, your introduction was so kind and so thoughtful. So thank you for that. Thank you for having me.
And it's well deserved. Samyuktha, let's start with you briefly summarizing your leadership journey. Can you tell us how you got started working in the association and nonprofit sector?
Absolutely. Falling into the association world was a happy accident. I've always thought that I was going to be in the hospital healthcare administrative side. That's what was the motivation behind getting my master's of public health degree. So when I first got my master's, I thought, okay, I'm going to intern in a hospital. I'm going to see what impact I could make there just on the patients, patient care. And I worked in social services for a while just to get my footing in the door, just to build my job experience and build those skills and leadership that way. I unfortunately got laid off due to budget constraints and just with the political landscape changing. So I was out of a job for about 10 months, to be honest, just to figure out what am I going to do? Where am I going next? It was a very hard time, but it was also a very invigorating time to realize my value and contributions that I have to offer. So I ended up falling into the association space. My first job was at the American Osteopathic Association, where I worked in the affiliate affairs department for about 4 years. And then I went to my current position, where I'm at the American Association of Nurse Anesthesiology, providing consulting services to the state association there. Just being a disabled woman of color, you have to work twice as hard to be seen. I was very over-enthused about everything. I was always taking initiative just to show my capabilities, to show my worth, to show that I could do the job and more, because just my life was all about trying to prove to people who I was. And I had to show that not only I could do it, I could exceed expectations as well. So while I moved to my second job during the pandemic, I remember starting my second job at the AANA in this, and within 3 months, the world shut down because of the pandemic. And then we saw a major movement with Black Lives Matter. And my life has always been DEI. I've lived and breathed DEI every day, just as far as who I am. But when I saw associations, especially taking that interest to ensure DEI was something that they follow every day, gave me an opportunity. Hey, I have a story. I have something to share. I have something to provide that value, and I could lead that way. I could lead with my story and maybe hopefully use that to empower other individuals to share theirs and to show that people from all backgrounds, all marginalized communities deserve to have a voice. And just seeing the associations just really not back down, especially in times like now where DEI is now being seen as an insult or being pushed back and even removed from other institutions. I think it gives me hope that associations are still prioritizing, that the work is not stopping. This is something, it's a lifelong journey, especially us as people of color. The work never stops.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to dig a little bit deeper into something that you said about 2020. Your interest in DEIA Amplify, did it start there, or was there a catalyst before that time that energized your interest in DEI Amplified? And why would you say that you're so passionate about it?
Good question. So I think, you know, just my lifelong journey. I immigrated to this country when I was a year and a half, and my mom trying to assimilate in a country that she doesn't know at all, trying to bring her Indian culture and also understanding a new culture, a new life, a new chapter, and trying to make sure that I have support and resources so I could be a full human being. Like it starts as early as that. So my mom made it her lifelong journey to advocate for me to make sure that I have the tools and resources to become a successful, independent, self-sufficient human being. So starting school, making adjustments at home, we had all these things, accommodations to be put in place so I could go to school. As a person with dwarfism, a step stool is necessary for me to function. If I don't have a stool in the bathroom, I can't wash my hands, I can't brush my teeth. Daily tasks that average sized people take for granted. So those are things that I'm always thinking of, and just my life in general. I'm always trying to find ways to adjust. I'm always trying to find solutions so I could get by. There are days where we're exhausted and when we're tired to where we don't want to find a solution. We just want to get through another day, And also, it was also a personal journey for me to also see, where does my Indian identity fit in? But I was so focused on establishing myself as a human being, coming from the dwarfism angle, that there were parts of my life where I felt like I had to almost sacrifice my Indian identity or not bring it to the forefront as much, because I felt that it was another layer for some people to get through to accept me. But I was like, well, I'll just put that aside and just focus on my dwarfism and get that accepted. DEI, accommodations, inclusion was at the forefront of my life. And then I would do dwarfism awareness presentations at work. And when I got into the association world, I remember my first presentation about dwarfism awareness at, the staff meeting. And it was funny because I was the first month right after I started. So I was new to the association and already, raising awareness. And that received so much positive feedback. I felt so included, so welcome there.
I so appreciate the work that you do and your advocacy in the space of accessibility in particular. I had an injury to my leg maybe a year ago, and it really impeded my ability to do stairs for a while. And the building that I was working in at the time did not have an elevator or any type of way to get up from the parking garage other than several flights of stairs. Or, of course, you could walk around several busy ramps where cars were, whizzing by, but it was very hard. And I was saying to a friend one day, this is a temporary situation for me because my leg eventually healed. It got better and I'm fine. But it did increase my awareness for people for whom it's not a temporary situation, whether it's a physical disability or an invisible disability. People are dealing with things every day. There's a lot of ableism in this culture, and people just don't think about it. It's not malicious. There's no ill intent. You just really don't think about it if it doesn't impact you. And so I think your efforts to increase awareness, to educate, it's not only brave, but it's very, very helpful to both the able and disabled communities. I love it. And so I'll stay with that a little bit and talk about how much changed in 2020. In addition to the pandemic, which you mentioned, George Floyd's murder really helped springboard society as a whole into a much larger conversation around not just diversity, but also equity and inclusion and other interrelated tenets of DEI, or as we are calling it, DEI Amplified. Has the way that you think about DEI Amplified evolved since 2020? And if so, how do you think your perspective on it has changed?
That's a really good question. I think it has changed. I can't, speak for other organizations, but just on the association side, I really think it has changed in that, first, with George Floyd, I think people have started taking it one step at a time almost. In the very beginning, when DEI became the forefront or became that buzzword, people were focused on diversity. People were focused on race. Then more representation, people from different races started being better represented. Then equity and inclusion kind of just fell with it. So I started seeing a progressive growth since that time, especially in this last year, like 2023, 2024. I'm seeing disability starting to be part of the conversation. And I think, like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I can't help but wonder if I had a hand in that conversation, especially on the ASAE side, those opportunities to really have that voice about disability and just seeing maybe disability wasn't a big priority at certain points, but I just can't help but wonder if with my voice and other people's voices and other disabled association professionals just being there, I'm seeing now accessibility being part of that strategy. ASAE has incorporated an accessibility task force, accessibility-wide strategy focused on improving accessibility among associations nationwide, while still not forgetting the big picture to make sure that DEI is weaved in, is incorporated. It's not a separate structure. It has to be something we stand and live by every day in our work.
I love that. And I would say that your voice has made a difference. Listeners, because of my other episodes, and some of you know me personally, that I've been a part of the association community for more than 20 years now. And I will tell you that I have never heard as much about accessibility in particular as I have heard within the past year or so. So I think that your voice and voices like yours are certainly making a difference, and you're pushing to really talk about it and to center these things. And that's a really exciting development. Kudos to everyone all the way around for that. And I ask you right now, because we talked a lot about DEI Amplified and that intersection for you around your dwarfism and your South Asian identity. We're at a moment in time that is a really exciting moment. Regardless of where your politics is, we have a African American and South Asian woman who is running for president of the United States. What does this moment mean for you as a South Asian woman?
Yeah, wow. My eyes are all on this right now. Like seeing her just really, she's a movement. She is in it in herself, just who she is. Everything, like, taking away her politics, taking away like what she's done or what she hasn't done. Just her as an individual, everything she represents, everything she's like trying to do, and like this is so monumental for us, for women of color, for Black women, for Indian women, just for women as a
Yeah,
demographic.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just constantly praying every day, like, for one of the main tenets of Hinduism is dharma. Dharma is righteousness. Dharma is responsibility. It's duty. It's eternal truth. It's seeking truth. It's seeking higher knowledge, always learning. And I always say, like, whenever we're at a reckoning or at a major like crossroads in our life where we don't know what the outcome is, to bring us faith, to keep us grounded, I'm always thinking, may the side of righteousness win. May the side of dharma prevail. Whether there's two opposing forces, I always say, may dharma win. So that is something that I'm
That's
just
good.
holding on to.
That's so good. Oh, I need to write that one down. I love it. I love it. And Samyukta, what do you see as a major event or trend that you think is going to change diversity and inclusion in the next 5 or so years?
That's a good question. We have to be realistic. It's always like really good to like have that hope and like have that the positivity and optimism, especially when you're surrounded by good people, good supportive advocates, allies who are really fighting for you. They're fighting with you to make sure DEI, to make sure inclusion, justice, belonging, accessibility is always implemented, is always like ensured among every facet of life. We're always going to get pushback. We're always going to run into people who don't believe it, who don't want to see us succeed, who don't care about our identities, our existence. So I think that is like the harsh reality of our individual lives. And like, we're always going to have ignorant people. Like for me, like having dwarfism, there's always going to be ignorant adults, or just those misconceptions, those microaggressions, like what have you. Those are always things that are going to be there for the rest of our lives. And that is that harsh reality that really, it's like that radical acceptance I always tell myself, like that is something that's not going to go away. But what helps us move forward are experiences like this, just really getting that motivation, like having those conversations to empower us to keep doing that work. Like whenever we have supportive programs that really committed to lifting marginalized voices, it drowns out the other noise, because the impact that these programs have, the impact that we as individuals make, like it moves mountains. It cancels cancels out the negativity. It cancels out the ignorance. It cancels out the hate, the discrimination, because they try to be loud. They try to be loud and drown us out. But we're going to be louder in a good way.
Yes, yes. I love that radical acceptance. So, we talked about what organizations are doing right around DEI Amplified, specifically in the association space, since that's where both of us have our day jobs. But I need to know, for those who are listening that are in leadership positions in these organizations, what do you think organizations are not getting right at this time? What is one thing that you think organizations need to get better at in the conversation around DEI Amplified, particularly accessibility?
Yes, I could definitely talk forever about that. I think the first thing is I'm seeing some associations be very performative about DEI Amplified. Like they say they believe it, they say they support it, but nothing is done. They maybe have cultural days where people bring in food, for example. That's a simple example. But like that's all they do. They don't really take the time to hear employees' perspectives. They don't take the time to train other employees who may not have the education, for example, disability awareness. If organizations are if there are organizations that are just saying that they support DEI on the surface level and they're not doing it and they're not doing anything about it, then accessibility is going to be lost. So when it comes to accessibility, I think organizations really need to understand that accessibility needs to be universal. It's not just putting in a ramp. It's not just putting in one thing and then forgetting about it. It's something that needs to be like ingrained in us. When it comes to disability, like it's not just physical. It's like we're welcoming people with different conditions, body types, body sizes, people who are neurodivergent. Like these are totally diverse humans, and we want to create an environment that's safe, that's accessible and inclusive for all of them. So my motto is if something is inaccessible for one person, it is inaccessible for everybody. So I think if we adopt that mindset and not see it as, oh, it's expensive, oh, it's too much to do, oh, why do we need that? All those things, I think it can definitely make a difference.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I'm very curious about how you think organizations can get started, because a struggle that organizations have is that the task of stepping into understanding DEI Amplified seems very intimidating. It's so broad and it's so vast, and how do we get it right? So, particularly in the area of accessibility, because you really do specialize in focusing on advocacy for disabled communities, right? Where do people start? What's the starting point for organizations? Samyuktha, I'd love to start this, but I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I think the first thing is to really hear your disabled employees. So talk to your disabled employees. If there's not an accessibility strategy already implemented, or if there's if the basics are covered, see where you're at. Let's take a look at your organization. See where you're at in terms of accessibility or DEI as a whole. What's missing? What could be improved? And that is really where it's really key to talk to your employees. You may not have disabled employees. Okay, that's an issue. Why don't you have disabled employees? Are you doing inclusive hiring? What are your hiring? It starts there. How do you bring these diverse perspective experiences to your workplace? And do you know your employee demographics? Is your employee pool diverse? Like, are there disabled employees? And it's up to them whether they want to disclose if they have disability or not. But disability is not always physical, too, right? So know your employees, know your staff, know your organization first. Start there, and then see where are the gaps that need to be filled. And I always say, you have a ramp, for example, or you have an elevator. Sure, those are the basics. But I also think it's also good to partner with disability organizations. It is a very globally famous organization focused on disability inclusion in workplaces. There's a lot of resources out there. So once you have those resources in place, once you have really good conversations with your employees and making sure disabled people are included in the conversation too. If it's not your staff, it may be your members. It can also be your members that are disabled. Talk to your members. What are they seeing in their daily lives? That could be part of the accessibility conversation, because they're also going to be coming to your meeting. It doesn't stop at staff. It's necessary. It'll start with staff maybe, but it has to be applied to your whole membership. So it's about creating that space, having those conversations, really listening, and really not coming with these judgments about, like, if you're already going in there with that fear about, oh God, I don't know if we can do this. I don't know if we'll be able to put these accommodations in place. You're already setting an obstacle for yourself, and it's not going to be a good outcome if you're already approaching it that way. So it's really good to take it head on. It's really good to be open and have those conversations. Please.
Is there any advice that you would offer people who want to enter this space and advocate as a DEI amplified specialist, someone who is actually from a marginalized group or community and wants to amplify their voice in this space and help advocate for others?
Okay, so I think the first thing I would say is we need you. We need your voice. Your voice is important. Your voice is necessary and needed for a time like this. Like, there is no such thing as we have too many people talking about this, or it's too many voices, or just it's too much. No, it is never. For something as crucial as this and needed and necessary as this, we need your voice. And my goal is to make that impact. My goal is to make sure that I'm not the last person in this space, in this being exposed to this. So especially in these leadership roles, disabled people of color in leadership roles are few and far between, as far as what I've seen. So I'm really trying to change that, and really hoping that I can pave the way for other people like me to be lifted up and to be elevated. So to these folks, I say your voices are needed. And it's about really being in touch with yourself. And there is probably some internalized fears that we have to also uncover, especially on the internalized ableism perspective. We are even afraid to ask because we're scared that asking for what we need is a burden. And I think we have to overcome those fears, overcome those internalized feelings, because we deserve what we need to succeed, just to feel seen, just get through the door, and just to be a part of the conversation. And these are our basic necessary requirements to just live each day. So we should not be afraid to ask for it. These are not bonus features. This is not special treatment. So that is something we, from marginalized communities, need to first overcome in ourselves, and being comfortable in our space and fully confident with who we are. Because what we carry, people will see. We always think that a lot of things are internalized, or they're not going to see or really know how we feel, but how we present ourselves, how we carry ourselves, people will feed off of. So if we're already going in a conversation hey, sorry for asking for this, no, we gotta be straightforward, we gotta be direct, and we should not be afraid. We have to be brave. And asking for what we need can be vulnerable. It can be hard, but we have to do it. we've already been vulnerable to get through each day, and it's exhausting. But we deserve that space. We deserve to be seen. We deserve to be heard.
And what I'm hearing you say is that you just have to get out there and use your voice and just speak up and just get started, right? That's really key. And we talked a little bit about that earlier. But you talked a bit about your mom's bravery and her caring. And I'm just going to add a word here that you didn't say, but I'm going to add the fierceness of a mom who is advocating for her child. I love it. When did you, Samyuktha, realize that you had difference from the other kids around you? When did you realize that? And how did your mom build you up? Because you're a very confident woman. You are not afraid. Well, I'm going to say you don't project fear, because I don't know that you aren't afraid, but you don't project fear when you're asking for what you need. Come across as very confident and very self-assured, which I think is a testament to your own strength, but also mom and how she upheld you in those early developmental years where you maybe were making peace with your difference. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
From a height perspective, I was the same height as most of my preschool classmates. So this is in preschool, and I was the same height, but I still look different because I have a disproportionate type of dwarfism where achondroplasia, I have a curved spine, I have just my hands are trident shaped, and there are distinctive features about having dwarfism, and it's not just being short, right? So kids will notice. Kids are curious. Kids always start asking questions. They point out things and that we don't even see sometimes. So I was in preschool, and I remember one of my classmates told me, "Hey, you're little." Like just like made a comment like that, and like later on that day, my mom was brushing my hair, and I said, "Hey, Emma, this boy in my class called me little, but I'm not little. I'm a big girl." So that's what I said. And my mom, turns me around and she says, "Well, Samyuktha, like your classmate is right. You are little." And I remember crying, like sobbing my eyes out. I just going, "Oh, I don't want to be little. I don't want to be little." And I think that was like my first realization that there was something different about me. To be honest, childhood is a blur sometimes. Just to think about like, oh my God, what did I do to get here? Sometimes I'm just like, what happened? It's like all of a sudden you blink and then here you are. But I think one also the things that really helped me in building my confidence and acceptance as a little person is Little People of America. So my mom made a point to make sure that I saw other people who looked like me, that I met other people, just connected with them. I built lifelong mentors and friendships through Little People of America just to be able to be in a community with other little people and just hear their stories and then get their support and resources and education. Just having that support system was very integral for my mom too, like especially meeting other parents, meeting with doctors who specialize in treating people with dwarfism who are very educated in the skeletal dysplasia, like on a scientific level, technical medical level. So I think it really touched my mom so much to know that I wasn't in this alone, that there I wasn't like the only one who has this condition, and there are other people who are also struggling, also trying to figure it out each day. And I think also having her as anchor, my sisters also making sure that they were, my biggest advocates too. And I think having that family love, having also growing up in like a really good support system and also being nourished by friendships. I think those friends that I had really saw me for who I was, and they advocated for me too. If there were kids name calling, or if there was adversity outside, like my friends would be there to step up for me. My friends were there to look out for me. So I think like having that is very energizing. It's like that boost of love, and that boost of support really helped me just speaking for myself and educating others and knowing that I had a whole group of people to fall back on. And I think that was really what made the difference.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self who was just discovering what it meant to be different or to be little, what would you tell her about the path that she would take and this journey to DEI amplified leadership?
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking about this all the time. It's like, especially like one of the other catalysts I wanted to mention is Artesia Moore from Association Forum. She
Isn't she
saw me.
amazing? Oh
She
my God.
changed my life.
Yeah.
She literally
Mine too.
changed my life.
Mine
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
she changes people. She transforms people. Like she saw me, 2022, like as someone that needed to be seen, as someone who needed to be raised up. And like she said, I want you to be the Association Forum Holiday Showcase luncheon keynote speaker. And I was like, what are you talking about? I have no speaking. I have no speaking experience. I have no public experience. I had no idea this was coming up for me, you know. But she believed in me. She saw it. She's like, we need your voice. We need your expertise. We need you. And that was like literally the catalyst to like just taking associations by the horns as far as like DEI. And but as far as what would I tell my younger self from a cultural perspective, I remember growing up thinking that whatever I was doing wasn't enough. I remember thinking that I always had to keep running. I always had to keep going and moving and like not stopping because I felt I had so much to prove to the world that I could do these things, and also I had to prove to myself that I could do these things. I was running to achieve the next thing because like I was scared of sitting still. I was scared of the stillness of like having a lull. I always needed to be busy. I always needed to be productive, always doing something so I could keep showing and striving and achieving. I would have told my younger self, there's no timeline to life. There's no certainty to life. And you think that you might get married in a certain number of years, or you might have kids and like you may have this job, but you can't hold on to that. And outside of that, you are enough. You are enough for who you are. You are perfect the way you are. There's nothing wrong about you. There's nothing that you need to fix about yourself. Like you are enough. You are doing the best you can. And there are things inside of you that you may not know that you are capable of yourself, but are waiting to be seen, are waiting to be revealed. So be open, be passionate, be kind, but also love yourself at the same time.
That's so good. How can listeners connect with you if they'd like to learn more about you, Samyuktha, or if they want to follow your journey and stay connected?
Yes, thank you for asking. So I started, as you mentioned, we were talking about DEI Amplify. So DEI Amplify is my new hashtag for the DEI brand that I'm trying to build as a DEI practitioner, DEI influencer, DEI speaker. And I'm using LinkedIn as my platform to build this brand. So you could find me on LinkedIn, Samyuktha Neeraja, or I think the handle Samyu Samyu, and then the first four letters of my last name, Neera. You can follow me there. You can connect with me there. Also, I do a little bit of things on Instagram at Samyu Neera. And if you'd like to also get in touch via email for speaking engagements or just to talk all things DEI, you can send me an email at my first initial, S as in Sam, and then Neeraja, Neeraja, at AA.
Thank you so much. Samyuktha, I have so enjoyed this engaging conversation
Me
with
too.
you. It's been really fun, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. So, we look forward to seeing how you are going to grow DEI Amplified. And if there's ever anything that the Leadership Bites family can do for you, please feel free to call on us and let us know. We totally support you and what you're doing. And listeners, thank you for joining us today as well. And meet me back here in 2 weeks for another episode of Leadership Bites. Thank you.
Thank you.